Hey, so guys, in this video we're going to be going over the maximizer module in Ozone 7. It is what makes Ozone Ozone. I'm going to click on that to open it up. What a maximizer does is it's essentially a limiter, but it's kind of a smart limiter because its release controls are dependent on what's being fed into it. So there's fancy terms with like IRC, intelligent release control, adaptive release control. It's all very fancy ways to get the most like loudness out of your material. So how it works is what it does is it reduces the dynamics of the track and then boosts things. So when things go over the threshold, they're like immediately squished, and then depending on the release time, it will release and it'll leave alone the quieter parts. So how it was explained to me and how I finally kind of got it is it makes the quieter sounds in your mix, makes them louder. So when you do all that and then you raise the gain, you have an overall louder mix, and that is done with this threshold um, thing right here. So we have our track here, and I'm just going to, bring it down. Right. So we have this little line here, and this is denoting our release control. I'm going to get into the IRC modes in another video, but essentially you bring this down, it will make it louder. You have your ceiling here, which you bring down to zero point 0.1 is a good kind of thing you can do. Another little button here is the true peak limiting. So when like the nature of how analog how digital is converted to analog is certain peaks get through because it doesn't quite interpolate. So you get clipping, and this will kind of oversample the overall limiting or maximizing, you should say. And what this does is this prevents clipping. So basically, it's a high quality. This should be on. It doesn't hurt to have it on, and this will limit ISPs or inner sample peaks. Always a good idea. Throw more processing power at it. Why not? So depending on what kind of genre you're making, you want to play around with the character. And this will control the attack and release of the maximizer, and it'll change the kind of the the character of it. See, transparent is a bit more slow. If you're fast, you get a little bit more distortion. And as we go to transparent, it's a little bit slower, sounds more natural. As we go slow, it can sound a bit more pumping. It all depends on what your what kind of song you're mastering. We're working in EDM, so we want to go kind of transparent, smooth, or fast, depending on. Now, the character really depends on what IRC mode you are using. Think of the IRC modes as like different generations. See, 2 builds on 1. 2 is a little bit more aggressive than 1. IRC3 has like different kind of characters, and IRC4 has, classic modern transient. They all have different kind of ways they go about things. So but we're not going to get into that yet. Yeah, I tend to have it around Well, I play around with it and see what I can get away with. Right, and you can kind of bypass. So we have a louder mix, which is pretty cool. So this little slider here is the stereo unlink. I don't know why it's called unlink. It should just be called stereo link, but I don't know. It kind of confuses you. So, but you can kind of see by this. So, when it's at 0, the 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 detection anything over the threshold, it'll basically what am I saying? Think of it as splitting the left and right into 2 separate maximizers. So you have independent maximizers for left and right, and the varying degrees between 100 and 0% stereo link of your kind of limiting or maximizing. This is useful um, for certain kinds of music. It can kind of skew the stereo image a tiny bit. That's why, varying degrees of stereo unlinkiness. It's useful for, say, like acoustic music, uh, heavily panned material. So you won't have like something that's only on the left channel or more predominantly on the left channel affecting things on the right. It's all up to you. So the transient emphasis. Now this is kind of useful for like hardcore modes like IRC3 clipping. Um, this will kind of emphasize the transients after the limiting stage, so you preserve more punchiness but still achieve the loudness. It's it's really finicky to get right, but what it'll do is you'll be able to keep perceived dynamics while still having a loud mix, and that's quite useful and you know good. It's another way because what it does is underneath the hood of the maximizer, it takes a lot of things into account. There's a lot of things happening under the hood. With like the release control is very important. It changes its release time based on what's kind of being fed into it, but it also detects transients and it detects dynamics differently, and it treats them differently in a nice kind of creative way, and it affects different bands differently. And they've kind of refined it over the versions, and it's kind of tricky to get right, but you get a really powerful result just with kind of the default settings, just bringing the threshold down. But yeah, so that is it for this video. I hope you learned some stuff. Take care and have a good one.